Hello, hello. Lori has kicked off the party by saying hello in the chat. So I want to welcome everybody to Whip Wednesday, our weekly sit and sew time, our sew and chat. Uh, Back in the day, it was called Stitch and Bitch, but that's not a very nice term. We're going to be on the positive side, no complaining, just celebrating our love of fabric. So I have a couple announcements. Well, one big one. The Flyway Cotton Cuts Puzzle Mystery Big Reveal Clue 10 is happening this Friday, November 7th. So I want to encourage all of you to subscribe to the Cotton Cuts YouTube channel and turn on your notifications so you see when we go live on Friday, November 7th for the big reveal. And I'll give you just a sneak peek because I found this awesome backing fabric. I had just a little bit in the stash, and those are tiny little airplanes, which I thought were just perfect for the Flyway mystery. So I used that little bit of my stash and sewed a backing. I like to do pieced backing with different, using up my scraps in different configurations, usually some type of log cabin framed square type of arrangement so that I can, put in some different pieces. Sometimes it'll be a big 9 patch or a star or something. So I am looking forward to showing you that on Friday, and I'll have a full video out about Clue 10 for Flyway. Let's see, saying hello in the chat. Hi, Misty, and Stacy's here. Good to see you, Stacy. And Jill, did we talk about this last time and I totally forgot? It has been a week and a day and a month. It's been kind of crazy around here. Lots of stress in my household today because it was college registration day and things did not go as smoothly as we hoped. So there were a few tears as my college age daughter was trying to sign up for classes. I'm sure everybody can commiserate with that chore. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Tonight though is the Under the Sea mystery, and I have got these beautiful green and teal and blue batiks. And I say thank you to Sean at The Guy Who Sews because he was my secret partner for choosing the colors for this project. So that is wonderful. And I thank him very much for finding my favorite colors there. So to get started, Cotton Cuts sends you the clue each month. And I do need to talk to them because they put all the instructions on a gray background. And when I print it out, I'm wasting ink to make that gray background. I'm like, just print it on a white background, folks. Let's make it easy. They do a shaded diagram for each section, which is really nice and easy to follow for those of us that are visual, like to follow visual instructions. So that means you have to have your instruction booklet or tip sheet. I guess this is more of a tip sheet. They tell you when all the clues are shipping and give you some tips for putting things together. But they have this color chart, fabric chart on the back, and that's what I need to keep handy to remember all my pieces, because we've got this really nice floral print. And then we've got these nice navy dots. And I think we're going to use those first. Yep. It gave me triangles in 2 piles, so I need to make sure I get the right number of fabrics out. for each of those. Okay, so that'll be our first half square triangle if you look on my workspace. And then we've got this nice larger floral print. I think of those as hibiscus leaves. And then we've got a pale dot. And we've got just a watercolor teal. You might be able to see it better. Lots of shadows here in my sewing room tonight. And then we've got our dotty square there. And just lots of other people. Lots of other pieces for all the people here. I've got larger triangles in my light and medium there, and some larger squares and even some rectangles. So we've got quite a variety of pieces tonight to sew for Clue 4. So each of the mystery quilts that Cotton Cuts puts out, the puzzle mystery quilts, are 10-month sew-alongs. Lori is asking, can you switch the colors around? It's your quilt. You can do whatever you want. The problem with that is that you don't know where this puzzle piece fits in the final arrangement. And so if you start switching colors for one clue, you would have to remember how you swapped them for the next, and it may totally mess up the design. So I do know some people choose their own colors in other mysteries, like Bonnie Hunter is a well-known online quilt designer who does a mystery pattern every year. And some people just wait until the end so they can see the layout, and then they pick their own colors and put them where they want. So, and Misty is waiting on her Clue 4. It should be in the mail. They mail them on the first Friday. So they should have gone out in the mail a few days, last week, and then hopefully they will make their way to you very, very quickly. But yes, if you fall behind, no big deal. Yeah, so that's the plan there for our sewing. So I've got all these big pieces that I need to set aside because right now I am focused on making 4 half square triangles. And this is one of those instances where if you're looking at my workspace, these fabrics do not have a lot of contrast. So we'll see how that goes in the final layout. I just trust that it will all come together beautifully. And, it's one of those things that when you're up close in person, it's pretty distinct, but from across the room, you may have some muddiness in the design. And here we are in November of 2025 already. That is just amazing to me. I can remember being a kid in the 70s thinking that 2025 I was going to be ancient. We'd be living on Mars by the time I was 50 in my imagination. But so I hope everybody had fun on Halloween. All treats, no tricks. I had a delightful weekend spending most of my time at the long arm. I got 2 projects done on the long arm, so that was fantastic. Okay, and I love my little Aliso iron. Look looking forward to that. It's just so handy to have a tabletop setup here for ironing and cutting and doing everything, especially when I'm on camera. Right here in my little, 4x6 space, and I will double check. And we want to press to your B fabric. So for me, that is the floral. So I just lay my triangles on top that I'm pressing to, and then just set it on top there for a few seconds. I've got a nice wool pressing mat that I can keep here on top of my table. And I do have my rotating mat underneath, which is probably not a good idea to have that because the heat will transfer through the wool. But I've got a wooden board underneath, so I'm not ruining the furniture. Okay, and now we want to, let's see, how do I want this? I want to make sure my diagonal seam matches the layout of the pattern. Okay, so I only need 2 of these. So I take 2 of the half square triangles that I made and I'm setting those aside. Look at me reading directions for once. A lot of times I'll just assume that I have to use all of whatever color they're telling me about, and then I have to spend some time ripping out seams that were incorrect because I didn't actually need the piece in the numbers that I had imagined. Just because it's there doesn't mean it needs to get sewn together. And I am using, if you notice this little yellow scrap of fabric, that is my leader ender thread tab that I just run underneath at the end of a chain so that I can move on, especially with these clues, so that I can move on to the next step and I have all my pieces rather than leaving one under the machine. And Stacy asks, what sewing machine do I have? I am sewing on a baby lock that I actually inherited from my mother. And I have to confess that I have never been, the only machine I personally shopped for was my long arm. Right now I have three small machines. My travel machine, my workhorse that I love dearly, is a little Janome Gem, and it has like 5 different stitches on it. You can do straight stitch and zigzag and a buttonhole, I think, and that's about it on that one. But it has pieced almost every single quilt I've ever made over the last 20 years, and it's never been in this. Well, it's been to a tune-up once. So it has just, like I said, worked beautifully. And then I inherited this baby lock Aria from my mom because she wasn't using it. And it's got a bunch, 200 some stitches that you can use on the menu. It's got a basic embroidered alphabet. I could be doing all sorts of decorative stitches and things. But I just need a straight stitch machine. So I know I'm not using this machine to its full capacity. And then last year, when we were cleaning out my mother-in-law's house, she had a 1951 Singer featherweight in her garage. And I snatched that right up. The paint is immaculate. It is in such good condition, except the cord. And so my husband has some electrical knowledge, and I'm just waiting on him to replace the power cord so that I can start using that featherweight a little bit more. But back to our mystery quilt. I've completed step 2. Step 1 was the half square triangle, and then we added them to these squares. So we did 2 of those, and now I have to take my longer B fabric and those other half square triangles that I made, and we're going to put them this way and make sure that diagonal is going uphill. So that is what I'm going to do there. And whenever I am sewing half square triangles, this camera angle is better. I always pay attention to that seam. So on this one, I want that seam to go down as I put it under the needle. I don't want to be sewing into that seam allowance. So I will sew this one with it face up, because that's the way the fabric lays. If I put it in the machine the other way, it would the seam allowance would be going under the needle in a way that I do not care for. So I always flip my fabric around to make the seams go where I want, which sometimes is a little bit hard to explain to beginners, all these, instantaneous decisions that we're making as we pick up our pieces of fabric. But I always like to lay things out the way that they will be in the final quilt, or per instructions, lay them out to the side of my machine first, and then I can pick them up and decide how I'm going to sew them together. And those of you that have made more than one quilt may have figured out a lot of these tips on your own. So if I'm telling you something and it's not the way you do it, no big deal. Just quilt the way you quilt. Oh, Stacy is watching for featherweights on eBay and Facebook Marketplace. Probably you could find some too. Good to know. Stacy mentions that the cords are cheap to replace. It's one of those things that I know it's there when I'm ready to use it, but I've got a functional machine. I've got a functional machine that goes shopping or goes to class with me. So I don't really need a third machine in regular rotation. So that's just where I'm at right now. Okay, it is time for some flying geese. And Cotton Cuts always makes this exciting because they use lots of different colors in their flying geese. So you really have to pay attention to your fabric layouts. And we are using the big triangle F, which is this light one. So if you're looking at my workspace, I've got my goose is light. And then my sky, I call the corners the sky fabric. And the left-hand side is C, which is the floral, my hibiscus. And then the right-hand side is my other leafy pattern, which is darker. And that goes on the other corner. And we're only making 2 of these. I had to peek ahead at the next step, but we're not there yet. We're just doing this. So when I start sewing my flying geese, I take the right-hand corner and I line those up. And with these pre-cut pieces, it is so easy to get that in place. And it's flipping up funky under the presser foot. Hello, Lonnie. Thanks for stopping in. I have the Nightbot virtual assistant, and they are giving you a warning about emojis. You sprinkle a few emojis in, but don't go too crazy there. it looks like spam, so we want to keep the internet spiders, I think that's what they call them, that crawl around watching all of our stuff going on. Keep them happy. Okay, so I've got the right hand side, and then with flying geese, you always want to press in the middle. And if you were doing this with squares of fabric where you had an extra layer underneath, then you would be ready to trim. And so I'm going to press that out of the way because you need that open so that the other fabric doesn't catch that seam the wrong way. And then we just put this one on top, and I am going to sew from the bottom corner so that this double layer seam, which needs to be pressed a little bit so it goes extremely flat. It was a little scrunched there. So that again is facing away from the needle as it feeds through. And same thing on this one. I'm going to line my pre-cuts up there. As I'm talking about pre-cuts, I'm thinking about how easy it is to cut half square triangles with the Quilt. And having Stacy here reminds me to tell you guys about the new Quilt bolt. It's a smaller version of their electric die cutter. It looks fabulous. And Stacy of Stacy Lee Creative got to play with a bolt, and she's done some videos. So hop on over to her channel and explore the wonderful world of Quilt. So Misty, tell us what you are working on these days while you're waiting for your mystery quilt to show up. Okay, and now put those two in place. Okay, and then it says turn that on end, and we will attach these bright squares. See what I mean by all the different colors that they put into their flying geese? So we've got 3 different colors. We've got the goose and 2 different corners, and then we're adding it to a completely different square for that edge. And that's what I love about the Cotton Cuts designs. I like mystery quilts in general. I like just being told the colors and then watching the patterns appear. So I am quite okay with the venturing into the unknown, not knowing what the final quilt will be. Maybe I'm just too trusting in general. But with Cotton Cuts, they call it a puzzle. So you're not necessarily making a whole block. You're making different pieces and parts that fit together in all sorts of different ways. Yes, Stacy says that AccuQuilt already started their Black Friday sales, so you can get a great discount on the bolt. And yes, Stacy, I have a Go, just the standard size crank handle Go. And Misty is working on some bags for Thanksgiving and Christmas. How fun. And Lori is a new subscriber for Stacy. That's what I love about our quilting community and the folks in chat. There is, kind of a circle of quilters who go live regularly, and you start seeing friendly faces in the chat, and it takes on a life of its own, and it's a wonderful community. So thank you all for being here and being part of the True Blue crew and the larger quilters of YouTube. Okay, so I've got those 3 components, and now, okay, so that goes that way. Okay, I think I see where we're doing this. Okay, yeah, that will go like that, and then we're going to put this like that, so that dark blue kind of makes a star point. And you can't necessarily see on the camera just because this contrast is not that big. But if you, like, there's some light green and teal here in this fabric. So if you see those edges, it's the dark area in between that has no teal is going to be the star point on that corner. Stacy, I go live every Wednesday, 99% of the time. Occasionally life happens and something comes up on a Wednesday that I have to attend to in real life and can't do a live stream. But it's been over a year that I've been going live every Wednesday. So I have a little more flexible work schedule than my husband, so I can get done and on camera by 4:00, and he doesn't get home until 5:30. So, I can get my sewing fix in, because sometimes he feels abandoned by my hobby. So that's something I'm working on. I would really love to get him to be the one that runs the long arm with, he complains that he's not artistic and he wouldn't be. And I'm like, you can follow a line on a pantograph. Let me put you to work, honey. Yes, Lori, I do have my podcast. That's a separate channel, Quilting on the Side. And I have a co-host, Tori, and we talk all about our this roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, because I do have a pattern design quilt education aspect to True Blue Quilts. So if you visit truebluequilts.com, you can see all my patterns. And so Tori and I talk about quilting business stuff on our podcast, weekly episodes over there. And so you can listen. If you're an Apple podcast or Spotify podcast listener, you can find us there, or watch us on the YouTube channel. And this week, our special guest is from outside the quilt industry. She is my YouTube coach. If you ever want to learn how to be better on camera and, make money, it's all about monetization. Yes, Stacy, there are a lot of men who long arm. He just hasn't ever expressed an interest. So that's fine. He does help me if I need to. Like, he helped me switch out the timing bar, something. He does some technical stuff with me if I run into a problem and need more mechanical assistance, because he is a very technically minded handyman, fix it. So he's mentioned a few times, and I'm trying not to be a nagging wife and get him enrolled in a sewing machine repair class because that's my ideal vision for his retirement, is that he can work at the local quilt shop as a repair person, and I can be teaching or, working in the shop, and we can go to work together. Yeah, Stacy, check out our latest episode of Quilting on the Side, and you'll meet Meredith, who runs the Video Brand Academy. And I've been in her coaching group for a few years. It's always nice to have people to talk to about the business side of things. Now, let me see which way I'm pressing here. For once, I'm pressing to the darker fabric. That doesn't always happen with these mysteries because there's so many different colorways that it's not always the dark fabric for each person in the same position on the pattern. Okay, so there's those components, and then these come right down like this, and they planned the pressing so that our seams would nest. If you follow the directions, everything should be nice and flat and squared up. I mentioned at the top of the live stream that the Cotton Cuts reveal for the previous mystery, because Cotton Cuts does a spring and a fall mystery. So the spring mystery is wrapping up, and we're going to have the big reveal on Friday, November 7th. So everybody tune in at noon Mountain Time. So what is that? 2 p.m. Eastern, and you'll get to see what the flyway mystery pattern looks like in all sorts of different colorways, because that's what I find most fun about these. Is I love watching the different colors choices and how they come together. Oh dear, there goes my bobbin. It lets me sew for about 5 stitches once it senses that it's running low, but there's plenty of thread to do a couple more inches. I wish it would just let me finish my seam. Come on, baby. There we go. Okay, so I can whoa, there was quite a lot of thread left on that bobbin. You were a liar, machine. So we will just keep going with that. I may have to stop a bit, but I'm stubborn. Okay, and then this, oh, they want us to press to the long portion of this unit and not to the, I would have pressed just to this little edge, but I love that star point configuration. That little 4-patch unit is one of my all-time favorites. I make my Lemoyne stars with that configuration. I've made, if you put a smaller sashing strip in between, you can get a fun star block in quadrants using that. Or no, I guess the Lemoyne star, I put a third half square triangle down here and I make it. You'd have to watch my video to find that one out. Okay, I am doing a lot of talking and not so much sewing yet, but I do need to label these as section 4A. And it is helpful to stay organized when you are doing a mystery quilt, and however you like to label things. So that you can have it a little bit easier and not have to come back to all the individual month directions to figure out which portion was which. And I always save my bags. So this one says clue 4. So I'll just drop this finished piece in. Oh, Misty has learned that mysteries are not her favorite way to make a quilt. So always good to find out what you don't like just as much as what you do like. Okay, we are doing square in a square. So I've got my nice leafy center, and then we are putting these large watercolors on opposite sides. So I can, and there were a lot of these units in the Flyway Mystery. So you got to hear me month after month after month. I fold and crease. Okay, so that one's gonna sit in that. And then you do your, it doesn't make as much difference with batiks, but with print fabrics, you want your creases to nest, and then you can just make sure they're lined up there on the center. And then I go ahead and with my creases nested, I put my pin in to hold it in place. And I'm going to go ahead and pin the other side. Excuse me. Tickle in my throat. So that one's ready for, and some people actually press the creases into their fabric when they're finding the middle. I just always finger press that crease. See, oh, you know what? I did the wrong thing. I have large triangles in that watercolor shade, and I have small triangles in that watercolor shade. Good thing I realized that I was running out of the large ones. Those are for the next section. And I can quick get those swapped out. That would have been very sad to sew the wrong size triangle on your square in a square. Okay, random thought. I have a Christmas quilt idea, but I need some fabric for the background. Has anybody seen any good, like, tone on tone snowflakes, or, you know, something light colored that would be a good background? Tell me where to shop. What line should I be looking for to find good snowflake fabric? And it doesn't have to be white. It could be like a light blue or a gray background. Oh, Misty was watching and didn't think, she could tell I had too much fabric overhang on my squares. So yeah, keep me honest there, Misty. Let me know when do you really want to do it that way, Andy? Okay, like I said, we'll see if this, nope, see, it keeps, yes, I know. My bobbin thread is almost empty. I'm gonna risk it, machine. Because I can see in the bobbin and it has plenty to do this seam. So stop yelling at me. STOF, you're going to have to spell that one out for me. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it to listen to that machine beep so many times. But it's got, you know, it's like I've got plenty of thread. Like there's a full layer of thread around the bottom. Oh, it's Misty says STOF is not an acronym. That's the name of the shop. Okay. And Lori says that the 3-yard quilt ladies, who their shop is Fabric Cafe. So I'll just have to go online and check it out. You know, I have these thoughts and I have to ask before doing any of my own research. So I appreciate your suggestions. Like there's still a whole layer of thread around the bobbin and it's giving me the bobbin almost empty warning. Silly goose. But I know you're mad at me, so I will. Oh, no. It did, as I pulled the bobbin out, it's completely empty. So we will grab a different bobbin. And I did check before we went live and saw that it was a little bit low, but I decided that I would just mismatch my thread. I've got a gray spool loaded on the top of my machine, and I'm going to go ahead and use this teal. A, because the fabric's teal, and B, because I don't really care what color my piecing thread is. So let me know what color piecing thread you typically use. Are you a matching kind of thread person, or do you just grab whatever's available? I mean, I wouldn't use a black on a white block, but I'll grab tan or gray or light blue or yellow or green, you know. Stacy uses cream for piecing and brands of thread. I'm an Aurifil girl most of the time. I am trying a spool of Masterpiece by Superior Threads just because I had a sample and it was handy the last time I needed a spool of thread. And I'm thinking it's time to change my needle because I sew, once a week. So that's what, just 4 hours a month. And I might sit down a couple other times, but usually not for very long. So my machine only runs for maybe anywhere between 6 to 10 hours a month. I've got a note here that I changed the needle back in June. So now that it's November, so let's see, June, July, August, September, 6 months, so 20 hours of piecing. That's probably plenty for a needle. I try to replace my long arm needles after 8 to 10 hours of stitching. So probably overdue. And Misty says Shabby Fabrics has, okay. They carry the Stoff fabrics that she was saying has a nice snowflake. So let me, like I said, taking notes. Nope, somewhere else. We love Christmas. Okay, so that note is ready for my next shopping excursion. Is everybody planning out their Black Friday shopping experience? Do you participate? Do you wait for Cyber Monday deals to shop online? What's your strategy? I am on a very tight budget this year, so I am looking for maybe some homemade gifts for some of the folks in my family, and then I can do, find some smaller quality items for the other folks. Stacy likes Wonderfill, because she has found that Aurifil breaks a lot on her Juki. Interesting. I have a few extra bits of Aurifil, just spools in some specialty colors because they were a sponsor for the Island Batik Fabric Ambassadors a few years ago when I was part of that program. So I was able to be gifted a few extra spools. And I do like their 40 weight is my go-to thread, the orange spools of Aurifil. I like Superior Thread Omni for my long arm. That's my go-to on the big cones. I know a lot of people like Glide thread for their long arm, but I have not taken the time to figure out tension. The one time I tried to use Glide, it was giving me fits. I could not get the tension worked out on that one. And you know, you can figure anything out. I just didn't have the time because I was on a deadline for a project, and I know Omni works fabulously 98% of the time, so I'm just going to stick with what my machine is comfortable with, what works the best, the majority of the time. Yeah, Lori, gift cards are always a great option, especially for teenagers because they love to, you know, go out and do the shopping thing. We were in a cycle, and this is years ago when we had little kids. Me and my brother were just exchanging gift cards, which seemed ridiculous. Why would I take money from my pocket and exchange it with the money you have in your pocket? Just keep your money, buy what you want, and we'll enjoy watching the kids open presents. So um, we do not exchange gifts among siblings anymore in my family. I would love to have more of the experience type things, but that doesn't really go along with the cheap nature that I need to be cultivating this year. So we've just had some big bills come due, and you know, we'll manage. We'll make it a little bit frugal, and I'll go back to my, you know, your romantic teenage years when for your boyfriend you would make little gift certificates of date nights and things. I'll do that for my husband. And so if he happens to watch this replay, sorry, hun, surprise. But the fun thing with gift cards is that you can make cute little fabric wallets and drawstring bags and things. So you can at least get the homemade aspect of something and then a gift card in there. And the other thing is, what do I do for my parents? They're in their 80s. They don't need any tchotchkes. They, you know, they get what they want. It's so hard. Luckily, my dad loves golf and crossword puzzles, so I can usually get him a, you know, some kind of crossword or word puzzle brain teaser book and a new set, a box of brand new golf balls, and he'll be set. But he is not as much into opening gifts as my mom is. She loves the, you know, let me just give everybody tons and tons of presents, because it's just, that's how, what she loves is giving and opening gifts. So I feel like I have to do that for my mother because she has been so generous over the years. Okay. So there are the square and the square units. And now we need to finish up and use these. Okay, we are making 4, but they're going to be opposites. So I'm using these big triangles, Misty. Thanks for catching that. Those big triangles are going to be my flying geese, and 2 of them are going to have this bee on the right, and the other 2 are going to have this bee on the left. Okay, here's an interesting bit of fabric. Notice how that green almost looks like a stain. Some people get very disturbed when they see those color distortions on their batik fabric, but it is all part of the batik dyeing process. So it's okay to have flaws in your fabric. It's all handmade. Oh, good to know. Stacy is working on a gifts to sew video. And yes, Tasha Quilts is another one of my quilting friends who is doing a podcast, but she actually said no to handmade gifts this year. So that was interesting to hear her perspective on the whole gift giving aspect. And Misty had a really good idea for my dad: make him some golf club covers. I think that would be a little bit intricate. I am much happier doing flat sewing than any type of 3D. So that is a good idea. And then my mom, as I said, she loves to give gifts. She was asking for our wish list, and I always feel so bad because one year I gave her a list of like 4 or 5 items, and I was thinking she would pick like 2. No, she got every single thing on the list. I'm like, Mom, this is too much. So you can see where a little bit of the guilt comes in, and the feeling. Like, I feel like Sheldon on Big Bang Theory, where you have to reciprocate to the same, the gift giving has to be equal. Ugh, we need to set a limit. So, she asked what was on my list this year. I don't even have a list because I've been so budget conscious. So it's circling back to the experiences. I'll have to look at the upcoming shows at some of the local theaters and suggest that she get me and my husband tickets to a show, and that'll be fun. Oh, Stacy says, here's something to put on my wish list: is a cord for the featherweight. Good one, Stacy. I will have to do that. That's funny. Okay, so this. Now I have to be careful with my flying geese that I get the alternate colors. So I've already sewn the light corners, so now I'll have to sew the dark corners on that first pair. And while you're still here, Stacy, I sent you an email regarding some YouTube questions. So take a look. If you didn't get it, let me know. I'll send it again. And my friend Tori is here. Hey, Tori, which just happens to be the name of her channel. I am working on my Under the Sea mystery in these pretty batiks. We were just talking about the podcast. Tori is my co-host. Best quilting buddy ever. Tori is one of those fun friendships where you talk online for years and years, and then you finally get to meet in person, because we met during the pandemic, lived in different parts of Arizona, and then we were able to connect at QuiltCon in 2022. So spent, what was that, 3 or 4 days together. And then she moved to Michigan. We spent another couple years chatting online almost every week. And then she came back to Phoenix for QuiltCon 2025. So that's been fun. I think I owe you a trip or two to Michigan. Hi, Rita. Yes, this is Under the Sea. And another reminder that we will be revealing the previous mystery, Flyway, on Friday the 7th. So tune in to Cotton Cuts and you will start seeing the completed quilts from all the Cotton Cuts ambassadors. Over the weekend. I am not going to QuiltCon 2026. I cannot travel from Arizona to Raleigh, North Carolina this year. So I'm saving my pennies to go to H&H in May. So we'll see. So keep watching my YouTube channel. I'll make some extra pennies and it'll pay for my plane ticket. Okay, so now that I've got these flying geese, oops, I need to do my little thread tab so I can get that last goose and get it all pressed so that I can lay out this block. The flying geese are going to be the bookends around that square, but I just have to see how the colors are arranged. So we have our squares in the center, and then we put our bee fabric, which is this dark, goes at the top, and then the other side is a mirror image. So that is what our next unit looks like. Yeah, Tori, this is the little Aliso travel iron, and it's in the Tula Pink colorway. I bought this at QuiltCon, and then like the very next month, they came out with the K-Facet blue one. So now I need to go buy the blue one, and then I can give this pink one away. It was like, oh, if I had only known they were going to come out with blue. Have to be on brand here at True Blue Quilts. Because that would count as a business expense, right? Anything I buy in blue counts as business needs. Okay, and on these, I am just lining them up, and if they are a thread or two off, I just eyeball the center and split the difference. So, and Misty is asking Stacy about some local Florida shows. Misty, it's not in Tampa, but I have some friends, quilting friends. They own Off the Wall Quilt, and they go to a lot of shows. They have a lot of plastic templates. I met them first as the makers of angle play rulers, which are special triangle templates. And yeah, Stacy had a fabulous event partnered with Moda at QuiltCon and was making charity quilts. Okay. That was the last seam. So I can press my blocks. We are pressing to the outside. And that is clue 4 of the Cotton Cuts Puzzle Mystery. This one is called Under the Sea. Where did I put my little Post-it notes? Oh, way over here because I needed to remember that fabric. Let me just put the fabric note over there where I'll see it when I walk out the door. This was 4B. Yeah, we did have some nice chit chats at QuiltCon, Stacy. So I always save the plastic bags. So there's clue 4 getting packed away for the final reveal. There are 10 clues. So we are almost halfway with the Under the Sea. And I'm just going to say Jelly. And she's working on an ocean-themed 3D quilt. So what is making it 3D? Are you putting embellishments on the top for that ocean theme? Okay, so there's that other box. And I'll give you one last sneak peek. I found this fun fabric with, those are little airplanes on it. Here, let me take down the workspace. And you can see a better view there. This is the backing of my flyway quilt. You can't see the whole thing until Friday, November 7th. So I was so happy to pull out that fabric. What do you guys think about backings that don't necessarily match? I hope you're okay with it because my flyway backing is a kind of odd color with the front. So you'll see all of that on Friday. So thank you, Lonnie and Jelly and Tori. I think it turned out really, really nice. So this is always a fun project. I just love working with the beautiful fabric that Cotton Cuts sends. I am on Team Marina for Under the Sea, and we will have another clue next month, so stay tuned. And since Flyway is coming to an end, that means that there will be signups very soon for the next Cotton Cuts mystery. So stay tuned for more adventures in quilting. And I am so thankful everybody hopped on over tonight. Usually Amber from the Cheeky Quilter comes on right after I do. She's a friend of mine from Louisiana. She and her mom make fabulous quilts down in that area of the US, and she's so fun to share on her projects online. So go check out the Cheeky Quilters, and I will see you back here next Wednesday with something fun. I haven't decided exactly what my next project will be since I don't have another mystery going at the moment. I'll have to kind of readjust my monthly schedule. But yeah, everybody go have fun with some fabric. We'll see you soon.